Today we're going to talk about location transfers. So location transfers is anytime you have multiple locations set up in coreSTORE and you need to move inventory between those two locations. So locations can be physical locations if you have multiple stores, multiple warehouses, but you can also set up a virtual location. If you have a single location, but maybe you have a back room and then you have your retail floor space, you might want to separate your inventory. That way you can keep track of what's in back stock versus what's on the floor. And you can transfer items between those two. So let's dive right in and take a look at how we can enter transfers into the system. So to start a transfer, basically you go to your purchasing dashboard. And you'll see there's actually 4 different transfer buttons. You've got your transfer in, transfer out, instant transfer, and finally you can enter a transfer request. So typically, if you have separate physical locations, when you do a transfer, you want to track what is in transit, meaning what's on the truck on the way to being delivered, especially if you're in separate cities. You want to make sure you know that there's inventory that's essentially in transit, not available in terms of being able to really sell it at that point because it's sitting on a truck and it's on its way to that other location. So typically what you'll do is you'll start with a transfer out and then enter a transfer in. Now, if your locations are very close to one another, or if it's a back room, typically you'll simply enter an instant transfer. So an instant transfer, it does exactly what it sounds like. It transfers the inventory instantly between the two locations. It still creates essentially a transfer out. So it removes items from inventory at the location that's sending the inventory and immediately receives those items into the receiving location. So there is no in transit in that instance because the transfer happens immediately. So if you've got 10 in stock and you're transferring 1, you'll end up immediately with 9 in stock in the sending location. And assuming your receiving location had 0, you would have 1 in stock at the receiving location. So let's go ahead and start out with entering a transfer out. And I'll go and scan an item. In this case, it's a Cloud Defensive transport bag, ammo transport bag, Cloud Defensive. Shout out to them, one of our customers, manufacturer, fantastic products. And in this case, I'll go ahead and enter that I'm going to transfer 10 of this item. So you'll see it's a -10 because it's coming out of my inventory. And then, of course, I need to specify what location I'm sending the inventory to. So you'll notice I've got 19. And in this case, I'm going to transfer them to Houston. I can change my transfer date, and this is just a custom field. And then when I'm ready, I can just say complete transfer. Okay, so when we create a transfer, it actually produces a document. You'll notice there's a barcode, and you can actually scan that barcode at the receiving location. So in this case, again, we're transferring from Austin. You'll see that in the top right to Houston. And we've got 10 of these that we're transferring. So let's go ahead and look at the inventory and see what effect it has on our inventory. If I pull up this item, which I already had ready, we can go all the way to the locations tab. And you'll notice that in Austin, I've got 10 that are being transferred out. In Houston, I've got 10 that are being transferred in. So that's my in-transit in and in-transit out number. So again, we keep track of all of that. All right, so let's go back and go into the dashboard. And now we'll receive these items into the receiving location. Of course, we need to change our location. We'll change it to Houston. And in this case, what I can do is I can just scan the document that was produced. And typically you'll take that document and attach it to the shipment. So I'll go ahead and pull up that transfer again, 1 item in that transfer, but maybe for whatever reason, only 9 came in because the picker made a mistake. They thought they grabbed 10, but they only put 9 in, even though they indicated that there were 10. So I'll just put 9 on that. And of course, I need to indicate what location. That should have filled in, but that's okay. I'll just say it's coming from Austin, and I'll complete the transfer. All right. And again, we have a document that gets printed showing that we received 9 from Austin into Houston. Let me go back to my items to show you the effect of that. And again, I'll jump right to the locations tab, and you'll see over here that I've got in transit still 1 because I received 9, right? And in Austin, I had 19. So again, I now have 9 on hand because I transferred 10, but it still shows that I have an open one that's in transit. Again, this is the picker just made a mistake. So we now see that we have that discrepancy. Of course, if I would have received all 10, I'd have 0 in here and 0 in the in transit in. But this way you can keep track of that inventory, and you now know that either there was a lost, stolen, or picking mistake with that particular transfer. All right, the instant transfer is super easy. If you just want to transfer between the locations, you can just start an instant transfer, scan in that same item, choose the location. In this case, I'll transfer to Dallas. I'll just transfer one of these, and I'll complete the transfer. Like I said, it's very easy to do. And finally, if you have stores and you want to allow them to request transfers, you can do that. There's security settings under the employees to determine whether or not you want to give access to any of these features. So you can limit it by employee by just going into the employee and changing those settings. And let's see, if we go back to the purchasing dashboard, I can go in and hit a transfer request. And again, in this case, we can just say I'm requesting 5 of these, and your warehouse, if you have a warehouse, for example, can review these requests. And in this case, I'll request it from Austin. And hit OK. And that basically creates a transfer request, which then you can review. And we do have an advanced transfer assistant, and we'll create a separate video for that. That allows you to look at these requests, and basically that request is being tracked so that it takes into account when you're using the transfer assistant. It takes this transfer assistant very similar to the buyer assistant. It lets you set up minimums and maximums at each location so that you know what to transfer from. Again, this is a good tool if you have a warehouse, a central warehouse. And we'll definitely make a separate video for that. But that's basically how location transfers work in the system. Now, if you are a gun store, and you're transferring serialized items, meaning you might be transferring the firearms that are serialized, basically the system works when it creates a transfer. It will dispose the firearm from the sending location to the receiving location, and it will acquire the firearm at the receiving location. So again, it works both with instant transfers and it works with your transfer out and transfer in. But your bound book is kept whole, and it automatically creates those acquisitions and dispositions. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.